Chimi dorjin jangla so wa de mo gada ju yan da bar da wa la la de ji chi dorji go re go yo de je la ma jo thum dorji jangla so wa de sana so wa ba je jo wa thumong ngim jo sa se thar jin jo sa kha sa me nyam ne thar song ne to ni be me le ja de ba jo so som dong ga ja da chi je je nya so me bo jo wa ji la so se je do de jo da da ji na Tamba Jujan the Tardo so. Any? Nada, Papa Gatri wasn't very Papa, she was a Tatango, and then Zujan is a Papa. Did it tell her? Remo, Soga, yep, Dramada Mango, didn't he? 대단하다면 구둥을 해요. 쨌나. 플라그 콘도 삼티 긴차로 빼 노다만 뭐래. 데라 동을 해요. 동다를 해요. 낭나라데 연대 도규 연대 서로건 제바 틀에 심기가 더 제바라. 되게 동대 무슨 싸우 되니 무슨 접동이야 그 체되니 이리 제바 망고요래. 되니 다다 갑제 시바데 갑제 강해지나 디 자가가 좀 진탐체라 내가 니 수아테다한테 냠리제네 빼나 유단도 탐고를 못해 낭리더니 버거 양 리딩 탐체라 디 냠절이 뭐 까밥이는 오 딜사한테 돈다 요디 되니 내가 참지 무슨도 되니 소소가 되니 다들아 주바니 봐 디고는 주바니 봐들 까바지 되니 까바는 생제 요래 되니 파파 까바사데 이시 소자라 까바 요래 이시 소자 까바 된 그거 주바니 암스랑데 되니 빼는 거기 되니 이시 소자 남타하는 되니 다베 점철 망보 나사 요래 되니 도모가 그러라 점철 남바 나서 되니 조금 그러더니 다다다 배나 그디 죽으자사신 돈tik 빨리 배나 사자진 벌들라서 봐 저는 저 도망간 거 이송 조금 그럽대 상지에게 사토 받는 조금 그럽소 도망간 거 그러더니 레위야 좀 잡아비에 저기요래 되니 레위에 강에 지제 완다 레위가 거니 랑지 탐지가 전체 그거래 Tani trapa jila shita tsatang zemchur tani pena dramana thoni mengmi kamjo ta zemchur dramana tongjure te ga ko lo tse shigmaro ni na yore o ta thomogun ru tani re sam ha kona re.
Now I'm going to talk about Kilaya or Purpa in Tibetan and the scepter Purpa, which you call Vajrakilaya, is made in different shapes, in different colors, with different drawings on it. And each attribute of the Purpa stand for different meanings and different purposes. Also, the deities appear in different forms with different attributes and scepters. All these attributes and the scepters indicates the inner qualities of the deity and the way the deity benefits sentient beings. The Vajrakilaya is one of the 8 herukas, and the teachings associated with these 8 herukas were realized by 8 great Mahasiddhas of India. And in Tibet, these same teachings were introduced by Guru Padmasambhava. And and practitioners accomplish these herukas, and that's how in Tibet the tradition of these 8 herukas appeared. Putting the instruction of Guru Padmasambhava, these Tibetan Mahasiddhas could accomplish all the great qualities and power and everything that is symbolized by the deities, 8 herukas. This particular heruka, which we call Vajrakilaya, was first practiced by the Dakini Eshe Tsogyal, and she became a highly accomplished practitioner of this Tantra. If you read the life story of Eshe Tsogyal, then you can see how she was highly accomplished in the supreme and ordinary siddhis. Ordinary siddhi means having the power to show miraculous powers, the ability to benefit sentient beings through peaceful, increasing, magnetizing, and wrathful ways, showing many manifestations. And also the ordinary siddhi includes the ability to read others' mind, and also we call it kangyo, which means like crossing very long distances in a very short time, and then also telepathic powers and so forth. And supreme attainment means achieving the state of dharmakaya, the complete Buddhahood, which is exactly the same as realizing Mahamudra.
근데 셔초시 받으면 시와 같은 다음 뒤 시주왕가 간이 군대장보다 야와정마다 선바스마 대라서 바탐제레 갑지 시주라라디 이집트 신이 시와 이집트 신이 요리 셔초를 때다 망네 드니 법방 전에 저건데 듭대 거지 엔지 경고 전부가 섬도 거지 경고리 경고 겪는 경고 거 상대리 상속 전에지 경고를 상제하면 전례가 다니 이제 도리 좀 경고 드니 갑지 경고 상속을 요래 법방 전례 경고서 드니 디나는 법법 탑란데 다 법박의 제기的법박의 난거 난동탐체 동치 예고니 되어래서 될 감들 탄진 남제 탄진 공만 남제에서 탄진이 되는 단데 미시다 하고는 탄진의 법박 참 벽고 돌쪽으로 변화 탈 상탈되나 같은 리가 내 무슨 타다나 변화 집이 시랍 간 남도 떠주래 동다 대다를 빼나 되니 탈들이 뭐 못하게 톡밤에 봐 빼놓고 상탈 탈 말들아 빼내더니 목만 남기해서 근데 위에 요래도 퍼바들로 이제
In the peaceful and wrathful deity teachings, I talked about Samantabhadra and 5 Buddha families and male and female Dakinis, male and female Bodhisattvas, and so forth. In the 8 Heruka system of practice, there are 42 peaceful deities. The mandala of the 8 Heruka has 9 mandalas within it. So the mandala in the north is called the northern mandala of activities, and that mandala is connected with Vajrakilaya. There are 4 ways in which Vajrakilaya liberates beings. The first is called Talgyan, which means like penetrating, not being obstructed by anything. So the idea of this Kilaya, the Vajra dragger, is that with mindfulness, which is symbolized by the dragger, all thoughts can be penetrated without having anything that can obstruct this. So that is the first way of liberating beings in the Kilaya. 뭐지? 디 심진 돈 제약의 탑시르벨.
리 심지 돈 제약의 탑. 리 다 샤미 시에지래 가래. 드니들 파파 방문에 르과 이시죠 파파서. 걔는 동담사 족생. 어쨌다 이 사자 친구도 조과 친구들라 또 동담사 족생 그 파파래. 동담사 족생들이 이 말에
단다 시디는 직 당보디 상타로
당부 동담사 족생도 파파 르과 이시죠 파파들 사자 때문에 따와 내리지. 르과 이시죠 파파 상와 상초승제 파발라데 건조 건담 이요레 페나 건조답데 되네 다다당 또 잘롱 틀리레 되네 페나 디 루가 잘롱 토콜라 되네 자감 디사 초승제 파바지 드니 건조답데 되네 드니 생긴탄데 레 상와 상초승 잘롱 틀리디 잘롱 틀리레 되네 남친이로 네.
이 장마디 단지 돈다 시나 당보디 공으로 봐.
당보디 군디 동담사 초서 르법팔바. 르법팔바 상세팔바. 상초승지 팔바. 상초승지도 당도 자롱 틀리 막 참 간 디팔바에서.
So then member 뭐지? 단지 뭐지 돈다 시어를 송송. 이 단데
니 랩송아.
단지 지시에서 단단히 숨자서 단지 디 장탈에는 직송소
말이 르과 이시지 파바지 사초선지 파바 이성 이마도
대식이 남도 또라야 돼 지당으로
이 르과 이시지 파바 르과 대식지 바래 르과 대식지 바래 드니 세미베 닝지 파바지 드니 다다노서 디제 대제 파바데나 다자 생물 다들 르저 제일 남을 주자리 파파여로 봐. 이 잘라 주자리 돼. 제제 파파서. 드니 디 파파. 디 파파 이제 아니 벨라 파파 탐게 졸로 드버 제 드버 가자. 되게 탐게 리리 디 시바 제바 베 망모디 용기 제반을 해요. then 디파송 거이소.
So the mindfulness which penetrates all discursive thoughts is the first kind of Vajrakilaya practice through which it liberates sentient beings. So I wanted to make sure that Rinpoche later explained another Kilaya by the name of Rigpa. That's why I was a little bit confused. There are two kinds. But Rinpoche just now said mindfulness and Rigpa, they are one and the same. So the Kilaya practice number one is that of the self-awareness or mindfulness. And that is connected with the absolute bodhicitta, the realization of Mahamudra or Dzogchen. And the second Kilaya is the Kilaya of secret or bodhicitta. In this, there are the practices of channels and wind and drops. And number three is the Kilaya of infinite compassion. That is connected with the relative bodhicitta. And the Kilaya number four is the actual dragger, which is made out of sometimes iron, sometimes wood, and sometimes silver, and so forth. So there are four different kinds of purba or kilaya. The kilaya of self-awareness, the kilaya of secret practices such as wind, channel, and drops, the kilaya of infinite compassion, and the kilaya which is symbolized by that dragger, the symbolic kilaya. In the extensive explanation of Vajrakilaya, there are detailed explanation of how to create this purba kilaya, who can create it, and so forth. But here, in this text, it's much more simplified.
동담 상주 당보 르바 이시지 퍼봐라 되니 나바 섬여래서 나바 섬저 강는 변나디 영지 퍼봐데 변나다 영동바지 선남과 동바지 변나 생그 샘도남과지 저 영지 퍼봐서 이시지 퍼봐되는 그 샘 영다르과 이섬에 버 동도나 이섬에 버 퍼봐다 섬 다리하고 그래
잉 에싱 이스메바. 잉 에싱 이스메바.
영들 다 배는 남카야. 남카 동마디. 영 주지 영들라. 세 남카도 남의 셈이 빼지 봐래. 세대 영들. 근데 남의 셈 르바디. 근데 다다 곰자지는 그 사자집에 동검제들이 르바 시지 퍼반데 배나. 르바 시지 퍼반다 남도 탐진 거다는데 남도 탐진 일몽 받던데 떨어져 버려래. 내 파판 초 판파 탐진은 초 다다고 사자지 뭐 냠들 있는데 니 requires prepared.
The kilaya of timeless awareness or rigpa or self-awareness has three kinds, three levels. First, the unification of mind and the basic space. The nature of mind is empty, exactly as the nature of space. When the nature of mind is realized, it merges with the basic space, which we call the basic space of phenomena. So that is the first kilaya, under the kilaya of timeless awareness. The second one is the kilaya of wisdom. The third is the kilaya of non-duality. Non-duality means in the state of non-dualism, the self-awareness is the basic space and the basic space is the self-awareness. Between them, there is no distinction. So altogether, these are three different types of kilayas. And basically, the kilaya of timeless awareness refers to the practice of Mahamudra. When you practice Mahamudra, no thought can shatter this state of meditation. That power is symbolized by the kilaya. When you look in the nature of mind, and if you really see the nature of mind, then neither it exists nor it doesn't exist. Neither it is permanent nor it is impermanent. It is not in any extreme. At that time, when you find the mind in none of this, then that is called seeing the mind. And the mind is seen in that way. It merges with the outer space inseparably. In the Mahamudra literature, this merging of mind and space is called the inseparability of appearance and mind. So this unity, this inseparability of the space and self-awareness or mind is the true meaning of kilaya. That is what kilaya stands for. When the basic space and the self-awareness are unified, in that context, in that state of mind, there is no fixation as to samsara being something other than nirvana, and nirvana being something other than samsara. All these distinctions are dissolved, and there is no dualism at all. When the fixation on appearances as real is broken, then all external appearances can be seen as unreal, as well as sentient beings living in there. You see sentient beings, but at the same time you see their emptiness simultaneously. So when all graspings and fixations are dismantled in your mind, then mind becomes completely free from all of these holdings, all these fixations. It's like an ice cube melting into water. So this kind of wisdom awareness, which is free from fixation, is called the kilaya of timeless awareness, which is the self-awareness itself.
te pena tata nyamling ka so charjan te na musu te ende jodo la lin de kyore jodo deptan debi mai re tren sa ba ma re pena musu sakchi nyamling ka ba chotri nyamling je ne o sem sap tong ni se me ba sen nam ka ta sem ye chi ba me ba re di ngang ni chu nyu mo nam to de je yong la te jin bi shirap de na pha ba re te ge nyu mo ba yi ba chol ne nam to de rāsāla chū chōl nā yu tōsū na tā chū rī pā yī shī jī pā pā tēp kē yō rē pē lā tē nā jī nām tō tā yu mō pā mū pō rī dzē pā tā tōng kā tō pā kāng nā lōng mā tēng tō pā tam chē rāsāla tōsū na tē rī chū kā rā tō rō yō rē nē yō nē rō jī tā lā rī ndē pā ndē rī sāk chīng dōk chīng tam chē kā tōng dī jī pū nā nā ndē wā yō rē tā nī pā 상적 semjo phapaare iba 상적 semjo phapaade ta 드린 속에 dorji luji tongche de ta khatang ta chito tambar ijar bena like kore 드린 di rang ta tamjin kanore 틀리 tamjin paore bena 드린 rang kamla de ta tam kamla chokwa tamje 대타 상하가 동시네 드니 세 제름라 드니 편전 탑게 담에바 마이바 랑게 sla야병과 산랑라 되네 드니 난 랑게 준비 시랍 드니 유모바 판고 노네 드니 드니 제네 드니 제바케나 드니 다다 따다 롱당 틀레선 네네 드니 다다 드라 냠서 랑나 제게 마다베 자롱 탐지 각바 20년 전에 되니 무슨 바도 다다 앞에다 롬주도 보고 톱저가 드니 데 톱야요 해서
So the meaning of Mahamudra and Dzogchen, they are all included in this particular Kilaya, the Kilaya of self-awareness or timeless awareness. And we need this Kilaya to step on the afflicting emotions. Actually, in our practice, we always use this Kilaya. In the case of Mahamudra practice, when you abide in the nature of mind which is clear and empty, which is completely merged with external space, in that state, whenever a thought arises, your mindfulness, cut it down right away. And that cutting quality of your mindfulness is symbolized by the Kilaya, Purpa. If this mindfulness is there in your meditation, then as soon as the afflicting emotions such as the 5 poisonous thoughts and other neutral thoughts arise in your meditation, as soon as it encounters this Kilaya-like mindfulness, it just becomes self-liberated in their own place. So the second kind of Kilaya is the Kilaya of bodhicitta. When you were introduced to the mandala of peaceful and truthful deities, you were introduced that all these deities are actually part of yourself, part of your mind, part of your body. Generally, according to the Vajrayana view, all the channels in our body are dakinis, and the drops in our body are dakas or heroes. In the generation stage of practice, you visualize yourself as well as all other sentient beings in the form of a deity. In this way, while viewing all sentient beings out there as deities, and in the mind, if you have constant mindfulness, then that would be a great way to abandon afflicting emotions. That is the way you can practice the wind channels and drops. When the wind channel and drops are practiced in a unified manner, all the afflicting emotions, all impurities that originate from these impure channels and winds can be transformed into pure, timeless awareness. And that kind of practice can enable you to attain Buddhahood in the level of Sambhogakaya in this life or in the state of Pardo.
Tini, Tiang Tata di fly sun long de Tal Sunbadina Kapoye. Nekap de Kang de fly sun long matter, something like Pelaco. Tini Tier and be the Triaki, Pelati, or Hang Ponkan Kimchi, the fly in Bakaran, she took up the water. Fly him, me, neither Pana Pela Kangde. Jimbe Shirab, you make it wanted. Bella Jimbe Shirab, you book up, Metata Hachipanayi, Numatamki, Shilling Joki, Jimbe Shirab, Numa Ranka Madi, Ningo Mepe, Nimbo Mepe, Numbat, Bella. Ya, same with the Lota machine with a control, Temata, the Numa Count and a less out of your head. Ya, Namjur Padina. The doctrine comes stronger. Oh, Namjir Patin, oh, Shedang Langya, Shedang to the town queens. Then you know about Shedang Re. So talking your they own up in a cook, you know about Shop Meva or a Shirapura Assassin. They Nangi Benaco, Tiny Moban do China. Oh, Tang Kovatam dinner message there. Oh. Up to Rangan to Chip up the Trinanga, Tribble Shirap, Fly, Sanlang, they Mabravani, they Chena Penaco. These two can drive a top joy, the Tini Yanga on the Napan de Penny, you Padolon go Topasa, Yongi, your data, Yami Natana, Lela or it. Rang data the Yamba Kosana, oh, then it comes to Simji in Tamji Penaco, Simji Yi Tamjia, oh, Theatre of Ponga Fata Lambe. Tapurang Jinda, Hakong, the Pena. Three Chadanga Topa Nyong, or Raga Chadang Johnson Goyore, in the Bachimbo head.
It is quite difficult to have a perfect, clear vision of being a deity yourself. However, if you always consider yourself as a deity, and if you maintain that mindfulness as much as you can, then it is possible to transform afflicting emotions into timeless awareness. Mindfulness that is possible to maintain by considering yourself as a deity is very powerful. Without these ordinary beings, as soon as afflicting emotion arises in their mind, they move on to create the karma. And that's how the collection of karma becomes very big. If there is no mindfulness at all, then there is no antidote at all to the afflicting emotions that arise in the mind. According to the Dzogchen teachings, it is said that if there is constant mindfulness and the clear vision of yourself being a deity, then even if anger arises, it is not a big problem. Because at the moment anger arises, there is somebody who noticed that. So as soon as anger is noticed, it becomes powerless. Same is true with attachment. As soon as attachment arises in your mind, if there is that mindfulness which knows that attachment is arising, then again attachment becomes powerless and you never get trapped in samsara. So, if you are confident that your body, your aggregates or skandhas and dhatus and ayatanas, the sense perceptions and sense faculties, if these are all in the nature of a deity, and if you are confident about that, then slowly you can find the same quality in other sentient beings. So, being in the nature of a deity, you have no chance to have attachment and aversion. It will become very easy to dispel afflicting emotions through this practice. And also this kind of practice is a very powerful method to attain Buddhahood in the level of Sambhogakaya in Pardo.
Then Sumba, say me be Ninja Chimbu Papa. Tata Tang so good penna Ninja China, Musa, Ninja Gomnita, Musa Dungages and Tona. Tela timber pele, ninja data jay or head. Triniguzo comes from the water to go to some of the water to social domain, the young gum load on the budget to go to some of the comes from simply to get Dungigram ye better cook. Mato the Jula. Ole, such a young marriage. 10 minutes repay, Jinji and Della G and Della Bechetare. 3 you're married. Now, clear cut simply chap there. Sanji Tom did the Monam Tata. Now, contact to Pachata Bar, Zampu, so Manaji. Then, dear Tamchi, the Ninja, the young to Semi, you go to the China. Then he got the Tapen, certain Ninja, go Mago Power, Ole. 7 Tomata, oh, 17 times your Rashu, chap the one like ye. Ole. Then don't eat Chibochi in Tona, or Dylan Jilla the Harley when he gave Meva. Ninja Magom and he Laroja Meva. Then he get the Tony, Ranga sing with Jet and Ninja around here, they chap did it at the little younger Yore. He did out say me when you get there. Take a simply Tamji, then he Ole. Cardi, he get the mother, Bongo Mares. Then he take a company. Simply Tamkila, Rug took the Simply Tamkila, thinking getty, provided tabe. To me, Redog Simply Tamkila, Rank Simple Kang, some chapa, there, some did it, they walk top the chappy or it. Third time the control lay. 소소 그 레타 까빠는 참다게 빼놓고 럼비는 매일 고아를 돌리 핀이 딩거래지 펜타타티 로sem지도지 마다와 다르스 니송sem지 sem지 담제들이 뭐람 레했다고는 때에선 토리 라이람들이 게 되는 토리 있으면 옆에 sem지 담제 때 단지 로도 로지는 어리 gave us all a corner, took my chungu logi. Took my chungu salata, Nedi Tamkila, Lamsang, took my chibu logi in the Nikel. Did took my chibu logi Tamkis, don't get taba. Tell her by yes, on Guyore, simply in a payment the party. Then there were a bit pena. Kawachimbo Bob there, didn't tell her Nima Pona. Kawasam to Yuan, show your day. Kawasam, didn't dopo. 통화들이 어디리 가 효성지 내리 가 맞게되는 레드 좀 톡이 맞도 휴지도 냠도 감점생기 때문에 이제 재미 발휘를 기억을 팽기요래 되게 대래해서
So the third kind of kilaya is the kilaya of infinite or immeasurable compassion. So where you use this immeasurable compassion is all sentient beings equal to the infinity of space. Right now, when we see somebody in terrible condition, we feel a very small amount of compassion. But that kind of compassion is limited, which is not symbolized by this kilaya. In this case, compassion means the feeling of compassion which pervades all sentient beings, and nobody is excluded from that. If we think about the nature of the 6 realms and the sentient beings there, we can discover that there is no one at all who is not suffering. Knowing this, when you feel compassionate to them, then that kind of compassion is like the space. It is all pervasive, because where there is space, there are sentient beings, and where there are sentient beings, your compassion is there. So it is like everywhere. In order to make your compassion all-encompassing, all-pervasive, you need the practice of the 4 immeasurables. Through the practice of the 4 immeasurables, when your compassion can reach all sentient beings, then it becomes spontaneous and effortless. In that level, your compassion itself, rather than somebody being compassionate. The nature of the mind is empty, yet compassionate. Compassion, when it is all-pervasive, is in the level of the nature of mind itself. So, in this state, your compassion is not conditional. and it has no limit. Whether there is a sentient being suffering or not, your mind is compassion. The power of your compassion is connected with all sentient beings at that level. But sentient beings get benefited by this compassion in different ways, according to their own individual karma and dispositions. In the prayer of compassion, it says, I'm going to liberate those who are not liberated, and I'm going to free those who are not freed, and so forth. So the meaning of this prayer is that through your compassion, you pray once for each sentient being and free sentient being from the lower realms to the higher realms. Those who are in higher realms are transferred or are taught and trained to attain the state of arahathood and so forth through the practice of the 4 ways of turning the mind, etc. And those who have become arahats are promoted up to the practice of Mahayana, and those who are in Mahayana are promoted up in the Vajrayana. So in this way, no sentient being is denied. All are benefited from this infinite compassion. The all-pervasive compassion is like the sun, and sentient beings of all these levels are like the snow on the ground. So in some area, where the snow is lighter, and in some area the snow is like higher, thicker. So the sun shines equally everywhere, but depending on the thickness of the snow, like when the sun shines, the snow melts and the ground can be seen. So where there is less snow, the ground can be seen faster, and when there are more snow, it takes time to melt and see the ground. So in the same way, the compassion is like the sun, and sentient beings are like those snow on the ground. Some sentient beings are with very heavy negative karma, and their disposition is very weak. So they take time to be fully benefited by the compassion. But the compassion itself is equal, always. Rikpa yeshegi, purba rikpa yeshegi yorwa, dila sum yore song. Sum de kondo gocho me dosi.
De.
Aji ingdang tongba sem ingdang tongba ingdang rikpa mangbo chi song.
Sei yin nam kha re. Sei yin nam kha de nang sem ye cham chung be be na. De nyo ye be ba. Yin reng ji ni. Yin reng li shong de ye. Yin reng song jok de. Sum. Re ni ga nyam de li shong de ni. Yin dang yi xi se be ba de. 생活 살자 집에 동공범주 세남 가는 세긴 제로 그래. 대세래.
나 숨도 가래.
직 사자 전부 따와라. 직랑 세고 이게 그거라. 진짜요 냠도 시소나. 자다 오마니가 세서 오자지.
아니 제교도 숨바들어 와. 직도 제바도 숨바들어 와.
그래. 직들이 바디 이 예미 송족도 다 벌바 예바들에 디제 제제 벌바 기반들라 당소시 주야리가 빼나 야상 올라서 봤더니 벌바 열 주야리다 즉 드리제름 양들은 누구요래 빼나 그 사제 벌바데 그 Trinity je provide the like gomja, look gomja de Gosaja provide.
Which have you provide?
Saga Chagja didn't go Saja gomja the gomja then a tabula gomja something gomja Saja here, Saja gomja. Gosaja provide. Trico gom down like a gom, tell a Saja provide. Jeremy so. 그 사지 법하지 봐도 계름래. 그 계름서 우금데. 틀에 이제 법하지는 다 꽃에 곰내고서 레비가 고니 심기 탐절을 핀도 돼. Tleje prepares. Tini dela Tang Tleje prepa Kala, same talk prepares. Tleje prepa, the same talk prepa, the Musumushi, Zuyo prepare. Tata Zogo, when a Zogis prepa, and song. Tini Tati Tamshin, so that on the Jeremge or Tambo got Saji Papa Sontira. Got Saji Papa Titon, Tasson Gered. Got Saji Papa Tela Ram Yin Papa. Thingy Papa, near his Ram Yin to that and Ram Yin Papa, Ram Zongo Papa, Thingy Papa, near his.
Then the teenage is Zushagores.
Zuya one Chile. Papa, same talk about the Sheng Zuyali. Sheng Ya Sang Ser, the Naka is over Baka.
There is a question. Please clearly restate the 3 levels of Kilaya of self-awareness. The first level is the level of Mahamudra. Second level is the level of self-awareness. The level of Mahamudra and the level of self-awareness. And when these two are unified, that is the third. The 4 Kilayas, the word Kilaya refers to 4 different things. First, it refers to the self-awareness, which is also called timeless awareness. Second, it refers to the sacred practice of channel, wind, and drops. Also, it involves the practice of bodhicitta. And the third reference is of infinite compassion. Fourth, the symbolic Kilaya, which is called Vajrakilaya. The symbolic actual object which we call Kilaya, the dragger, Vajrakilaya. So the symbolic Kilaya, which is the Vajrakilaya, is something made of either iron or copper or silver. And this category of Kilaya belongs to the fourth of the 4 kinds of Kilayas. A part of the fourth Kilaya, which is the actual symbolic Kilaya, is also the generation stage where you visualize yourself in the form of a deity. This kind of visualization is called in Tibetan Chakye Purpa, which literally means the Kilaya of Mudra. And then also in this category there is under the term the Kilaya of 4 activities. It means to benefit sentient beings by means of the 4 activities. Kilaya of 4 activities are actually objects. They are made out of metal, sometimes by wood, metal like iron, gold, silver, etc. And also sometimes they are made of wood. The Kilaya of Mudra, which involves the generation of your own body in the form of a deity, has 2 levels: the natural Kilaya and the Kilaya of meditative absorption.
Teni dela ta tari ko saja papa tela namba ni song de ramjin je papa ta tengen de je papa ni ramjin je papa kang de ta ta 무슨 사이 시바 오미 주지 인의 요바 사제탐 제제 초를 줘 봤더니 그 경콜 조도 코당 딘다 딘바르제 봐 주지 인의 요요래서 대는 가래를 제가 속에 곰네 드바르세 봐다 곰바르세 봐 드바르세 여 다다다 드바르사베 띵제래서 곰제다 드브르래서 주지 인의 요바 이 사이 시바 니바 다 땡은 이제 벌봐서 니바 땡은 이제 벌봐지 다다다 다고서 담을게 선두진 직딩이다 낭규지 심지 탐지나 이제네 딱벌한 그냥 하가 따와게 되네 대공 투네 드리데다 마다바 나와 탐지 전에 마다바 나와라 딱벌 나와게 제담네 드리께는 겁네 드리 니르비나 이제가 답변은 드바 냠슬린 봐 대 Jerem go gona, then Masi Tamchi, Purpose Cola, Shanne, then that would have later Tamchi, dropped up your race. Then you Papaga. This one. Dilatin the Tatang so, Fla, Gom, Drop, one girl, the dog flag, Chinap, she was in Delaco Gore. Fla Tamji Kangsong Yori dinner. Fla Kang Gondrup dinner, Chuji young Ramzong Trupasa dinner. Chuji young was a Kangi dinner. Do some just Haji Tamji, Chuji young dinner. Some gate to Kando Yori dinner. Some gate and Chuji young the Nakaka Chaplet in the Chukuna, Sanjay Tamji Yogore. There are some just Haji Tamji took you on the while Yogore. Teni 소속을 따때 사지에 담지 닝지도 없다. 나서가 대파도 없니게. 배나 대파의 실험이 또 그. 드니 그 처리 5만 원이 매니 진리 조르도 만나기 드니 이 시절 다 담지 무슨 적용을 뒤통다를 다다 과거에 차거리잖아. 라서 좀 추지연의 ram종 좀 라지 라 리리를 뒤섬지 사지에 담지 투지 용디 창도 요래 라 찍도 라 탐편 접죠 니는 창거 요래 강송들의 절와 탐지 이시 롱도 찍지부 동대 퍼버티드 퍼바지 뭐 말이 탐지를 피보 요래 탐지 고치 못 차고 해지.
The natural Kilaya means the wisdom being who abide in the celestial realms in the mandala with all retinues. This celestial mansion means the basic space of phenomena, and in the practice of Kilaya, the practitioner aspires to achieve the realization of this wisdom being. The Kilaya of meditative absorption. In this level, the practitioner view at phenomena and sentient beings from the point of view of Vajrayana, and the world, including sentient beings, are looked at as being pure by nature from the beginning. In this way, when the practitioner does the generation stage meditation, the whole world and sentient beings appear as the mandala of Vajrakilaya and attain all the siddhis. Whether you meditate on a deity, whether you do retreat or receive empowerment, through one deity you can receive the blessing of all enlightened beings. All deities are manifesting from the basic space of phenomena or Dharma Dhatu. Dharma Dhatu is the abode where all enlightened beings dwell, and this state of Dharma Dhatu is also called Dharmakaya. So in the practice of deity yoga, there are two very important factors. The first factor is the great compassion of the Buddhas, and the second factor is our devotion and wisdom. When these factors are together, then these divine beings can manifest from the basic space of phenomena or Dharma Dhatu. They actually really appear like rains appearing from the clouds, and each one of these deities, whether it's Vajrakilaya or another deity, embodies the qualities of the Buddhas of the three times. It is said in the Kilaya Tantra that all Buddhas are one and the same in the basic space of phenomena. And this saying is not only applicable in Vajrakilaya, but in all other Tantras.
Tata Nidrovina yeso. Tanguni dropa dubjina, Nidrovina ye yore. Tangbo niba, niba niba, dropa, niba dropa, dubchin. Tenije Nidrovina yeso ne. Tenije sordina, niba dropa dubchin, somna do yore. Ole. Te som de carriere de pena, ta tangbo, niba jene pena, flaggy, yundin tang. 추지 이거 사이 고정투 용디 타말방아서 생글롱아 이선데 연에 변에 딱 봐인 봐 원래 느끼 탐제 딱 보이 남예인 봐 대신에 오 대년 리와 지나 제다는 느끼고 봐 원래 대신에 드니 살아 토말 드니 소와다는 되니 맨은 오시지는 토마 레와지는 니바지 드니티 니바 유는 뭐 땅내들이 드니랑 그 셈게 때다 봐 다네들이 락바데 다들이 고아섬 차그래 다 용화 토노 다 파칠 다 무소다 사다 찍바래 오늘 유무가 탐지 이실을 절 마다바 탐지 바다바 나와데 랑 나와 저송잖아 이 요거요 말 빼놓고 오래 랑 나와데 저런데야 대는 대 저러니까 니와니 바지 오 사다가 니 파칠 나다래 하람 찍바래 되는 거치는 법부나기 차고 요래 드니 드바 되니 다 다랑다 사니 쳇발면도 니선지는 느끼다 아니 각하사다 보면도 랑 셈제직ning 볼 빼는 거 다다 셔공이라 랑지베나 셔공는 번에 샤데라 오늘 이제는 소소가 제직ning 보테라 소테 랑 셈 제직ning 보 동반이 대당 삼hinje년 들어와서 그래 드니 말라 다다 저 hinje 요래 드니 세 나바니 샤데는 맞아 동나 수아니 뭐도 랑도 이해 매바래 드니 드바데 드니 랑무서 사람 통을 드니 저래 드니 디 드바데 롱마불로 드니 디 팀보 차오나 오다 나시 참지 라그라미래 심기 참지 빼놓고 이제는 딱 봐래 선수긴지 된대요. 용왕아이라미 임친가이라미 레 낭규지 습진 탐지장 빼놓고 유몽이신가이라미 된다. 탐지 선후진이 야예 가나 규지 습진 탐지 사그라미리 사사우 하고 다 릅친이 되네. 근데 랑 쪼보지네. 대다 빼놓고 선송진이 뒤담지 야예강 침보 진 낭주지 심비 랑 쪼르 줄바가 되니 감설 심지들 랑 플라잉 콜라도 오네더니 릅친지 되니 니르이나 이제더니 랑 용화 토는 게더니 딘지 바들 랩고요 되니 가가
In the practice of Vajrakilaya, there are 4 levels. The first level is called Nyemba, which means in this state you create your first connection with Vajrakilaya. First, you look at the great qualities of the body, speech, and mind of Vajrakilaya, which is in complete pure form. And then you compare that with the ordinary body, speech, and mind of sentient beings and the whole world, and try to find the connection between the pure state of Vajrakilaya's body, speech, and mind and the same states of sentient beings. And then in the second level, which is a little bit advanced form of the same practice, you realize yourself as being as same as Vajrakilaya, the deity. And you are able to understand that the essential nature of afflicting emotions is wisdom awareness. And your own appearance can be looked with pure perception. And you are quite sure at this level that you are identical to the deity, and you feel much closer to the deity than in the first level. In the third level, which is called accomplishing the deity, here the distinction between you and the deity disappears, and at this point you relate to your Buddha nature directly, and you discover its innate quality, which is compassion and emptiness. And here you don't find any difference between the deity and your innate nature. At this point, the deity becomes yourself. If this kind of spiritual accomplishment is maintained continuously, and if you gain stability in that, then you move on to discover or realize that the world outside are also in the nature of a deity, because the world outside is composed of the 5 elements, and the 5 elements are the 5 concepts of the 5 Buddha families. And all sentient beings are also realized as being deities. Their afflicting emotions are, for example, realized as the 5 wisdoms. So when this kind of realization becomes very clear in the mind, that is called the great accomplishment or dupchen. in brief, in the whole practice, you view the outside world as a celestial mansion and sentient beings as deities.
Teni tatan divye zeje prabha chela teni mangbo teni ni tengi zeje prabha tan divye zeje prabha nila divye zeje prabha jela mengda gre samosang gore tena divye zeje prabha shibande bena prabha lacho dingje tongyi yore ti ladang da nyame teni zindi ge prabha zone teni jingkola na jingkola zebje la supporti se purpose ko ni ching so ji yore ti de ni purpa sa dang dang ya ba ku de le project ta zonga ti se la de de zonga de ne ni purpa do de tri drop go re pe kha bo yo de purpose ko la o de ni de la dang dang ya ba de ne chi ma ta ji purpa so de tham che de ni xiam ne de ni de la meng ne de tam che ge jing ko re de ni de la मैंने तनी इसी चीज़ को चीज़ चीज़ डालने तनी तमने तनी तमचक इसी ये में पा ड्रमना और तनी देख छोटा मंगुर लेके थम के मुझे तो ये हो पा और ले तनी के जरूरत ही नहीं तनी सीमा दे जो पा ठीक ताय और ऐसा तो बात थोड़ा मनुष्य वो जो कंट्रोल.
Is there anybody who has not seen a Kilaya before?
통만용이
No.
네 대치도 타만을 동고 내 매망이 그지요.
Yes.
매망이 그지요.
Yes.
미그지요 말에.
네.
복도는 미그지요 말에. 코미디 매망이 그지요 말에. 나ኳ는 토저는 와. 이게 그지요 말에. 되니 다다다디 될라 달 틀에 이거 봐서 되니 틀에 이거 봐봐나 틀에 이거 봐봐데 주네 되니랑 민접 체딩 지네 되니 랑거 강나 땀나라 되니 틀에 이제 럽트봐 되니래서 틀에 이제 시와 제바 왕 잡고 드리래
탑스나가 내 탑 거. 탑. The Vajra dragger or the Kilaya, which is made of objects made of metals and so forth, is symbolic. In the formal practice of Vajrakilaya, there are 72 Kilayas or Vajra draggers made of sandalwood, and each of these Vajra draggers has to be put with one deity in the mandala. And there are 72 deities in the mandala of Kilaya. And each deity has a mantra and so forth. So when the whole mandala is set up, that is called the mandala of Samaya. Having visualized this mandala and having actually arranged it there, the next step is to invite the wisdom beings of that mandala. The wisdom beings send to the mandala and dissolve into it and become inseparable. In this way, you, as a practitioner, unite the Samaya and the wisdom being and practice Kilaya. Out of such practice, the accomplishment of supreme and ordinary siddhis and the four activities become attainable. This is the symbolic Kilaya or Vajra dragger made of material. So it is said that the upper part of the Vajra dragger was first made by humans and the lower part was made by non-humans. The first object for Kilaya dropped from the space. The Kilaya of the four activities are actually draggers, and they are usually made of wood and so forth. So after having made them, then the practitioner consecrates it with mantra recitations and so forth. And when it is fully done with all these prayers, it can become a kind of tool to perform the four activities. Wherever you step it, you can accomplish the four activities.
되니 이시도자가 생각하면 법받으면 되니 바나 나오게 잘 손에 잘에 체초도로는 변해.
세주.
잘에 저맥도로는 되니 변해. 미시순이 로스용보를 야랑 좀 빠듬이 봐 이시소자가 땡이래 이시소자가 남타 저기들 놓고 이렇고 이시소자 남타는 열래지 저는 전에 이제 법안에 다다다 저소소소소 쏘고 그래야지 대담질 네 레소스 법안에 진이 쪽쪽 요래 저 망보 요래 원래 저 조지 제제 졸로 벨레텔 법안 걸라더니 제담만 도야 종하야더니 망보 요래지 이나요 다 저도 송주래지 드니 다 시법법안에 시법법안에 저 진딘 까보 몰람 드니 형소 가도 까보지나 조고를 해서 드니 지종을 소모제 조고를 해서 청소 소제 드니 옆 등보 참종 대라서 받으면 등보에 받으니 조고를 해서 드니 뒤는 시법사소 동제 곰 드니 하영 시법하 신등라서 받잖네 다 드리지는 드니 요절 까보 초디위 곰 맥바 곰 등의 곰 드니 디프바데 빼담란 저빠친 뭐 예다 저로 라서 봐다 이 샘피 탐피 동에 탐피 시야타 봐더니 근데 봐요 그래서
So
맘투이버 소 탐기 시원데 봐래서
지웰 하디 가마 푸르파디 강라 곰고래 지웰 하디 푸르파 코랑 강라 곰고래
퍼바 줍고로 도모 또 퍼바 줍로 좀 퍼바데 야예 칸다 버리 뒤는 들이 시월 라서 탐지 곰 들이 마도 봐 이는 뭐 드랍 근데 좀 들이 거 보다 되고 들이 빼래 열라 롱침보 다들이 용화들이 강이 쳐보는 들이 뒤감이 들이 샘지 담제다가 더 담나더니 빼놓고 딘지 받침보지 단계로 올라서 봐 이게 담지 시원하게 봐요 그래서 다 예배 벌바래지 다 가도 세보 셀 랑이 용청 나서 봐 형이나 빼니데 가도 세보지는 저거 그래서 옆 주제지네 참아 주제 법제야 주제지네 소모족 소모족 그래서 세 줍진다 되니 저라 디능들이 예배 라탐시 곰 배는 이렇게 라탐시 곰 되니 되려 전 통되게 되니 이런 뭐 줍. 되니 제나 되니는 게 체답 송나 밤저 나상 냠도 이시 용대 라서 받으니 예배는 봐요 그래서 되니 왕은 다다다 상 진디 마보 대라서 봐 가도 마부르기 되니 조고래 되니 옆 나감 인지도 별로 옆 나감다 나감 되는 다리 고코르스 되게 또 집아 예 나와서 나감을 나와 치가 하는 데는 나감을 해서 되니 되라 소르껴 소모껴고 그래 왕파벨한테 애써 소모껴 소모껴 되니 대 릅디티는 다 왕거를 기사도 담기 곰 되니 어제 좁디지 되니 이거 뭐 럽더니 되나 되니 되게 다다 마제지 득득 토보지 되니 띠먹기 되다 담지 샘 왕도 되네 답을 추소로 콜 내가 되니 랑거 되나 되니 랑거 준비 시랍대 이모 차례 유모 받던데 저 왕도 던 고조 타봐 원래 라랑 왕도 인랑 세제 농제는 배나 라랑 왕도 되는 유모 받던 좀 고쳤는데 배나 총거래 인랑 세제 농제는 인 탐시 될 제와요 원래 이게 돼 봐요 되게 용거래지 왕글래래지
Shitsogel was an adept in the practice of Vajrakilaya, and once when she stepped the purpa, the kilaya, on a rock, from that hole came out spring, water spring, and then she stepped dead bodies and made them alive. In this way, she performed a lot of miraculous deeds, which indicated her great accomplishment in the practice. There are 4 kilayas or Vajra dragger for 4 activities, and each one of them is made out of different material. In the detailed explanation of the Vajra dragger, there are the characteristics, the material, the way of making, and so forth. It's very complex, but in brief, the Vajra dragger for the peaceful activity is made out of white sandalwood, or it's made out of silver, or any other wood which is white in color. And it is usually about 8 inch in size, and the handle is round. The kilaya for peaceful activity or pacifying activity is, for example, like mentioned for peaceful deities to abide. When you accomplish the power of the peaceful activity of kilaya, you visualize all these peaceful deities in the kilaya and also recite the mantras of those deities. When you do this in very deep meditative absorption, from the kilaya appears very illuminating rays of light, and that kind of accomplishment is a great power, free sentient beings from the 8 and 16 fears. And it can also enable you to avert all situations, all incidents that are unpleasant to sentient beings. The kilaya for increasing activity is yellow in color, and it can be made of gold or any other wood which is yellow in color. And the shape of that dagger is kind of square. The tip of the dagger is also square, and it is about 6 inch tall. When you practice for accomplishing the increasing activity, you visualize all the deities of the increasing activity inside the kilaya. And when you meditate for a long time, then again the kilaya become luminous and it starts to radiate light. That is an indication of having accomplished this practice. And this kind of accomplishment can increase your life, merit, glory, power, and it can also reduce your afflicting emotions and increase your realization. And you will be rich with timeless awareness and great qualities. So the kilaya for magnetizing activity is red in color, and it can be made of red sandalwood or any material which is red in color. And the shape of this particular kilaya is like a half moon. It is like half of a circle, and it is 10 inch tall. This kilaya is a kind of mention for all the magnetizing deities to abide. In practice, when you visualize rays of light radiating from this vajra and dissolving back and radiating, when you continue this kind of practice for long until you accomplish it, you can turn the mind of beings who are you can turn the mind of ignorant and pride and very sinful beings to dharma. You can turn their mind to dharma, and you can also have a great power in the elimination of your own afflicting emotion, and thereby your mindfulness become very stable. Through this particular practice, you gain mastery over your mind and complete victory over your afflicting emotions, and also you can win the devotion and affection of sentient beings. You can, literally it means you can outshine others. Outshine others means everyone becomes kind of devoted to you and loving to you.
Mm-hmm. 다 잡고 퍼버려야지. 내 강의시에 이만에 다데. 아서 잡고 퍼버는데 저짜. 아니 짜를 링담을 빼 망보송을 이용되는데 들이 빼 망보여래. 좋다. 조. 되게 제발 첨보여래. 너를 설점송에 땜들 점송으로. 잡고 퍼버 저짜. 이 양만의 신도 나고 신 착보자들이라 이 옆쪽섬 잠시 쪽섬이지 완도 뭐 소모 예담 때문에 이적섬 중이 받아 빼나 너리 제니 섬제 소모 중이가 너리 저거를 해서 너리 대를 강는 데 고래잖아 너리 힘줘 참아 산지 땜바시와 심기 탐지 내진 족과 원래 꼰조좀 이제 the open meba, Pamala so what I'm saying, Dinamaza, that the Naga just a jerry, or Jing just how the simply Tamil in the Batani, then he did a sugar pinch in Matoba, or legendary loss of Manimba, that the Mok Jimbo Jin, the Datamche, that the routine the Dunny. Then you contracted. Now he did the new body, dry your mind. This Sanjay here a singular. It's a Sancho somebody young with Giali, and he said, then dry our head, young gun out some top of his. Mukbazon, then young gun out some top of it, and young gun out the young Trio, some young gun out neither. Then he hackle me, young gun out some song. Don't make body. That's about some same choke of perverse. The same choke of perverse that Papa Muri that the lay function, the same choke of perverse that
Same choke of Purba.
same choke, perverse, same choke that perverse so that legachia. So poo, purpose that same choke of perverse. Say the poo. Let me see. Boom, say,
Purba Pui or
Papa Pulling didn't come to Mong. Same talk of Purva, same talk, yet in a college in a degree. Mena, then he dinner, kitchen and degree. Then dinner, two, then Sharsam yoga, then I question Sharsam yoga. Titi wall jammed, Tandy wall chair. Or a jamdu, then you want to show jamdu, then there is jamdu, then and in the Pajaj. Lada be jamdu, Michelle. Jamdu, the Drimbaka, but don't get the quack jamdu in the tire. Dog, when the quantify your body, Kurmabo later. Jamdu there, yelling to you.
Ushije. Shesum.
Two Sharsum got it. Sharsum wall, jump to you. Let's take Chungong. Oh, true, you say. That's a little. The ship I can do it. Yatang David Pabaka and Cromwell go the young. The Tante won't put Charlie. Or the new. Indeed, that Papa didn't share some day or it. Papa, Dorji Jonan, he shares them, then the will jump there. She will give George and the Chamzong there. And she will jump you or marry. Jump you or marry. Call it somebody, shares them with somebody. Then you watch them there. Then they'll pay, shut out Mama pay. That's how you Papa have you there. The keep all of them over it. Person doing it that you pay, subject. That you want to be papi and massive going out.
This is some jet, the Jamduche.
Sharsum then the corner. Sharsum the corner. Sharsum wall Jamdu.
Jamdu all of her.
Jamdu wall, Kim Jordan, the old Jim Pie, Chung, the old so jelly. So get some jelly, Jim Short, Jim Pie Jimson. Kinyanya go, Jim.
Then the owner,
Jim Short, the water, I know, it's how much you go. Jim Short, the whole jam do, the water, and then a choosing a car. Then a choosing a car. Then he changed the dodgy chumbo, Duchu. The chumbo, Duchu, bitch. What took them?
Drew Ching,
Drew, Manardi, Drew Gore, Drew Chip, and
The kilaya for wrathful activity is black in color and it is made out of iron or out of wood which is black in color, and usually it is made of wood which is very strong and very hard. And the shape of this kilaya is triangle, and in the scripture there are detailed explanation of how to make it and what kind of person can make it and so forth. But here there is a very, very brief explanation. The size of this particular kilaya is 8 to 12 inch. The kilaya of the wrathful activity is used to subdue beings who are guilty with 10 different crimes. So these crimes include destroying the Buddha Dharma and depriving all sentient beings of happiness and defaming the glory of the Triple Gem and disregarding the loving and kindness of parents and so forth. Such people are completely occupied by ignorance and they cannot be taught, they cannot be liberated by teaching because they do not believe in the law of karma, cause and effect. So, through great compassion in the practice of the wrathful kilaya, such beings are visualized and actually their consciousnesses are separated from this body by visualizing that wrathful kilaya being stepped into their heart. And although they are guilty with all these crimes and they are ignorant, the intrinsic nature of their mind is still enlightened. They also have the Buddha nature. So skillfully they are like almost killed, actually killed in the visualization, and they are like sent to the Pure Lands and also sometimes in enlightened states. The actual scepter, which we call kilaya, has also many different attributes to it. And this is literally called the sun kilaya. Kilaya, which is like a child of the kilaya. And the top of the kilaya has 3 heads, 3 faces. And below that there is a kind of knot, which is called gyandu in Tibetan. And gyandu actually means knot. There's a string with a knot. And right below the knot, it is shaped with 8 edges. And below that, there's another knot. And then there's a head of crocodile. And from the mouth of crocodile is coming out these 3 edges. These 3 edges of the dragon. And in the visualization of kilaya, it is explained as abode of, or the mansion of all the kilaya deities. They are all abiding in this small scepter in the visualization. And also Rinpoche mentioned about a snake being somewhere, I don't know where.